The real dirt on America's frontier legends. We think we know our frontier heroes Lewis and Clark, Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone, Jim Bridger, Hugh Glass, Jeremiah Johnson, Buffalo Bill Cody. But much of what we've come to believe is a tangled mess of exaggerated newspaper stories, dime novels, Wild West shows, and Disney fueled nostalgia. In reality, these figures were often very different from their popular portrayals. Here's a look at the complicated, gritty, and often entertaining stories behind some of America's most legendary frontiersmen. Wild Bill Hickok. A gambler, scout, and lawman, Wild Bill Hickok was a man whose reputation ballooned far beyond the truth. While he did serve as a marshal and earned a reputation as a gunslinger, much of his legend was built on fiction. His confirmed kills were few, and one of them was tragically his own deputy. Hickok tried his hand at acting in Buffalo Bill Cody's stage show, but failed miserably. His voice was too soft, and he had a tendency to break character and threaten stagehands. He later struggled with glaucoma, drifted into poverty, and was ultimately shot in the back during a poker game in Deadwood, holding the now legendary Dead Man's Hand. Daniel Boone Boone's life was filled with genuine adventure, but the image of him as a rugged, brawling frontiersman wearing a coonskin cap is mostly myth. He was actually a mild-mannered man, known for his honesty, gentle demeanor, and respect for Native Americans. He once lamented killing any Native people, stating they had treated him better than his fellow settlers. While the real Boone inspired poems and adventure stories, he was far more complex. A frontiersman who preferred solitude and was more gentleman than gunslinger. Davy Crockett. Davy, or rather David. Crockett was less of a backwoods hero and more of a savvy self-promoter. He was born in lowland Tennessee and became famous not for his coonskin cap, which he rarely wore, but for his political career and storytelling skills. Crockett served in Congress and was known for his colorful language and populist appeal. After losing re-election, he journeyed to Texas, where he died at the Alamo. While Disney turned him into a bear-fighting folk hero, the real Crockett was a flawed but fascinating man trying to provide for his family while chasing political relevance. Mike Fink. Known as the King of the Keelboat Men, Mike Fink may be more folklore than fact. Described as half horse, half alligator, and all legend, Fink's supposed feats included shooting cups of whiskey off people's heads and wrestling alligators. Most of his stories are tall tales, many borrowed from other frontier figures. Still, he symbolizes the rowdy, river-riding culture of early America's inland waterways and remains a folk hero of the Mississippi. Jeremiah Johnson, John Liver-Eating Johnston. Made famous by Robert Redford in the 1972 film Jeremiah Johnson, the real man was named John Johnston, and the tale of him eating livers was likely a grotesque exaggeration. While he did have violent encounters with the Crow tribe, the liver-eating story came from later fiction and vaudeville acts in which he played along. Johnston was a mountain man and trapper, known for surviving brutal winters and skirmishes in the Rockies. A man shaped by survival, not cinematic revenge. Hugh Glass's survival story is one for the ages. Mauled by a grizzly and left for dead by his expedition team, he crawled over 200 miles back to civilization with a broken leg and open wounds. Despite this incredible feat, Hollywood couldn't resist adding drama. In The Revenant, his character is given a Native American family and a mystical aura, none of which has basis in historical fact. In truth, Glass was a gritty, determined trapper whose story needed no embellishment. Calamity Jane Martha Jane Cannery, better known as Calamity Jane, was a chaotic force of nature. A heavy drinker and wild storyteller, Jane fabricated much of her life story. She didn't ride with the Pony Express or fight alongside Custer. She was known more for causing bar fights than heroism, and most communities found her more nuisance than legend. Yet she had an uncanny ability to show up where history was happening, embedding herself in the mythos of the West. Cathay Williams. Cathay Williams was a true pioneer, an African-American woman who disguised herself as a man to enlist in the U.S. Army in 1866. Serving under the name William Cathay, she endured multiple hospital visits without being discovered. Her service was unremarkable to her commanders, but her story is groundbreaking. Williams remains the only documented female Buffalo soldier, and her bravery in stepping into a man's world went largely unrecognized until years after her death. Kit Carson. Kit Carson was a trapper, guide, Indian agent, and soldier, a frontier man whose life straddled myth and harsh reality. He gained fame through dime novels that romanticized his exploits. But the real Carson was deeply involved in violent campaigns against Native Americans, including the forced removal of the Navajo. He was respected for his survival skills and feared for his role in expansionist violence. Carson's story is one of contradictions, an explorer and a killer, a hero and a symbol of conquest. The Real Dirt on America's Frontier Legends reveals that behind every coonskin cap, grizzly scar, or dime novel pose was a real person, flawed, complicated, and endlessly fascinating. Their true stories are more compelling than the myths we grew up believing.